get you to come to lunch another time. Today we are listening to you.
Hey,
I think we can sit down.
welcome to my campus.
We're on mic.
Full
Oh.
Hang on, I've got to get a working pen. Bear with me. Sir, I need a pen. Having pen emergency. No, I'm good. I've got one. I got one. Yeah. Oh, sir. So I think we'll have a good discussion, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wide-ranging.
Yes.
I'll challenge you.
Nicely challenges.
I'll nicely challenge you. I won't embarrass you. Dude.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the fireside chat. I think Mohali is cold enough that we need a fireside. We don't have one, unfortunately, but we're going to have a fireside chat with Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan and Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal, and it's being moderated by Mr. John Reed. It's my pleasure to introduce the panelists. You need to bear with me. They're extremely accomplished, so it's going to take me a little time to read out all their accomplishments. Mr. Senapati Kris Gopalakrishnan is the chairman of Accelor Ventures, which is an accelerator that helps startups during the early stage of their business journey. He served as the vice chairman of Infosys from 2011 to 2014 and its MD and CEO from 2007 and to 2011. He's one of the co-founders of Infosys and has won various awards and accolades over his illustrious career. He was awarded India's third highest civilian honor, the Padma Bhushan, in January 2011. He has held and also holds currently various positions in industry, academic and government bodies and organizations. He is a chairman of Itihasa Research and Digital, which publishes history of Indian IT industry as Itihasa. It's itihasa.com in case you are interested, which is an app. It also reports on industrial and academic research in India. He is the co-author of Against All Odds, the IT Story of India. Mr. Gopalakrishnan invests in promoting research on brain sciences, aging-related disorders, as well as investing in startups and in the startup ecosystem. His family philanthropy is Pratiksha Trust, and the investment arm is Pratiti. Mr. Gopalakrishnan holds a master's degree in physics and computer science from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. He is also a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineers and an honorary fellow of Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers of India. Please join me in welcoming him. The second panelist this evening is Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal, who is the vice chairman of Bharti Enterprises, one of India's leading business groups with interests in telecom services, digital infrastructure and devices, space communications, financial services, processed foods and real estate. He is the chairman of Del Monte Foods and Bharti AXA Life Insurance. He is also a non-executive director of Bharti Airtel and the managing director of Bharti Land. Mr. Mittal has been associated and is also currently associated with various industry, academic, government, as well as cultural bodies. A passionate advocate for quality education, Mr. Mittal is actively engaged in enhancing school and higher education in various ways. He is closely associated with the ISB as a member of its executive board, chairman of the ISB's Mohali Campus Advisory Board, and chairman of the Advisory Council of the Bharti Institute of Public Policy here at ISB. He is a strong advocate of supporting the cause of quality education and uplifting vulnerable sections of the society. He is a co-chairman of Bharti's group, Bharti Group's philanthropic arm, the Bharti Foundation, which operates 173 Satya Bharti schools reaching nearly 40,000 students. So far, it has partnered with over 25,000 government schools under the Quality Support Program and engaged in large-scale initiatives with various state governments. Through its concerted efforts, the Bharti Foundation has benefited 3 million children since its inception, having reached more than 5.8 million beneficiaries, including children, teachers, parents, and rural communities in 18 states and union territories. Mr. Mittal has been awarded an honorary doctorate of civil law by Newcastle University, UK, and has served as the honorary consul for the Republic of Sierra Leone in India from 2014 to 2020. He has also won various awards and accolades over his illustrious career. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rakesh Bharti. The moderator for the fireside chat this evening is Mr. John Reed. He is Financial Times South Asia Bureau Chief based in New Delhi and covering business, economics, politics and society in India, Pakistan and the region. He joined Financial Times in 2000 working as a foreign correspondent and business reporter based in Bangkok. He's also been based in Jerusalem, London, Johannesburg and Warsaw. He's also contributed to FT's coverage of the war in Ukraine in 2014 and 2022, and of course the Israel and Hamas war of 2023. His work has won several awards, including from the New York Financial Writers Association, the Society of Publishers in Asia, and the Gerald Loeb Award. Please join me in welcoming John. So I'm going to hand over the responsibility over to Mr. Reed. Over to you.
Great, thank you very much. I think I'm mic'd. You can hear me.
Yeah.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for hosting me at your beautiful campus, ISB. Thanks for the invitation. Thank you to the panelists. I too am disappointed we don't have an actual fireside, but perhaps there's a stubble fire burning on a farm nearby that will light our way. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about. We had a fascinating sort of pre-chat in the green room or whatever it's called. And I'm going to start with a question. I have questions just as a journalist covering India and the Indian economy, and I'm going to start with one of those. You have in India's IT sector something that's absolutely extraordinary. It's world-class. It's an engine of your economy beyond the actual size of its employment, and it's a success story by any measure. But in my view, as a foreigner, coming in and obnoxiously asking questions and writing about India, it's not enough. It's not enough to create employment for your probably hundreds of millions of left behind people. Where does India get the other industries to develop, and where do you get the more modest jobs in your society, right? Where do you get vocational education? So how do you serve, you're looking from the pinnacle of the Indian economy. How do you serve the other, or how do they serve themselves, more to the point, the other, in between hundreds of millions of other Indians? Do you want to take that to start
Sure.
with?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this forum. The topic for the forum, research, I believe is very, very important as India looks to become a developed economy. That's something I've been passionately advocating and passionately supporting also. And to answer John's question, we need to develop our economy holistically. I believe that India is one of the few countries which is in the 19th century, 20th century, and the 21st century. So we have 40% of our population dependent on agriculture today.
40.
40. That's primarily in the 19th century. Automation is starting to hit their industry, but it's still low in terms of productivity. It contributes, if I remember right, about 20% to the GDP or 17% to the GDP growth. 17% to the GDP grows.
17.
17% grows at about 3%. So it actually drags down the economy. And in the 20th century, we have our manufacturing sector, which is fast transitioning to the 21st century. Again, it's probably around 20% of our GDP, and maybe employs about 25% of the population. And India, surprisingly, is actually primarily today a services economy. So jobs are being created on the services side today. So services includes construction, infrastructure buildings. There's huge investment in infrastructure. It creates jobs in the construction industry. Services industry also is all the work that's done in the healthcare side, all the work that's done in supporting the various developments that are happening in education, in everywhere there is growth happening. So that's where the services jobs are being created, including the fast-growing logistics and the Swiggies of the world and things like that. So that's where the jobs are being created, but it's typically at the bottom that these jobs are being created. We need to, as we transition to a developed economy, as we need to increase our per capita income, we need to take these people to the next level, which will require us to educate people in a bigger way, in a more programmatic way, structured way. We need to look at vocational training, and the challenge is, as we transition, all these sectors are getting impacted by technology. Right? So India has a very, very challenging task ahead of us, and we all need to, of course, work together to make it happen.
So I'd like to hear from you in a minute, but maybe you can reflect on this.
Sure.
As an outsider who's new to India, I'm struck by the incredible quality of your elite schools, in one of which we're sitting right now, and the education at the very top. And again, it's a bit like the IT sector. You're doing incredibly well at the top, but am I not wrong in saying that there's a bit of a gap in vocational education, in training for, jobs in factories, for this sort of, the training for this sort of the more common man or woman, as the case may be?
So John, let me first go to what Kris was mentioning on the economy side. Clearly, India chose services as the lead to grow its economy within the states and at the national level. And there's no right or wrong model. China went the manufacturing way.
They did.
But hand on heart, I can tell you, I am pleasantly surprised how the manufacturing sector is reviving in India. I would have never thought or dreamt of. And I think these are the policies by Prime Minister Modi, especially on the performance-linked incentive schemes, which have brought in. Suddenly that has acted as a catalyst. You see Apple coming in, you see large manufacturing ecosystem moving in, and it's just not the main product. The entire ancillary ecosystem is getting developed. So therefore the jobs are getting created. That's one end of the rainbow. The other end of the rainbow is there is job opportunity or employment being generated in the unorganized sector, which are low-paying jobs, and those don't get into the data when we look at employability and
But isn't it true that these are low-quality jobs?
I know. I'm just saying that I'm giving you the two ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
Right? And what Kris mentioned is there is a large gap in between which needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Vocational training is one piece which I believe can really not only give employability, but also generate entrepreneurs who may not want to, go into getting a low-paying job. And therefore, the Government of India and the Ministry of Education came up with this model of setting up vocational training centers in schools. And it's now part of the curriculum of CBSE board. Class 9-10 module 1 or whatever it's called, and class 11-12 is module 2, where you give vocational training. And with those training, a child, a boy or a girl is employable or can pick up a small business after class 12. But there's a problem, and I'll just come to that. The success of this model has been that government has put money, capital expenditure on the vocational training centers, but invited private sector companies to run. And therefore it is succeeding. The problem on the other side is that suddenly in the last 15-20 years, the landscape of the people below the poverty line who come from socio-diverse backgrounds, they have now started thinking that their kids to get educated, well educated, get jobs, and they should not lead the lives which they have led all their lives. So therefore now you see kids are not dropping in between in class 6, 7, they complete class 12, they are going into higher education, colleges and universities. So it's a mix of now, you get a vocational training skill set, you get a graduation, so the quality of the child is better than what it used to be earlier. So that's the first fundamental difference which is
Better
happening in the
before.
landscape.
Yeah, I will challenge you a bit because we've looked at the issue of unemployment in India, which is kind of persistently high and edging upwards, right? Which should not be happening in a booming economy. And when I've researched this, one of the things I've heard from employers is that the graduates just don't have the skills, right? Is that something that you think India is addressing or
Yes,
can
I
address?
think that is a dichotomy we have. If we look at graduates, about 29%, let's say about circa 30% are employable.
Yeah.
When the industry goes to interview on campus.
How much? What percent?
30.
Yeah.
And majority of them are also, we need to retrain them. And in the IT sector is more or less the same. So I believe that the time which we have lost for the last 2 decades, this needs to be addressed very urgently. And that can only come through the industry-academia partnerships.
Okay.
Because today, majority of the higher education in India are preparing the youth for jobs in future, which means business as usual. But by the time an engineer, a medical student completes 4 or 5 years, the world has moved,
Yeah.
the earth has moved under your feet. There are new technologies which have come. So we need to now go into creating future of job for the youth, which means that industry must sit with the academia, review and revise the curriculum ASAP without losing any time. And that needs to be constant engagement. It's
Yeah.
not a one-time engagement because the needs of the industry are changing fast. Academia needs to really understand and then prepare the youth for that. That's point one. The second quick one which I want to just make here is on the engagement on research. We have very, very good talent in the academic institutions. And money is not, is available. It's not that it is low in supply.
Yeah.
The problem is that if the academic institution can demonstrate cutting edge research, money from the same industry and many other industries would be available again and yet again. The only thing is it has to be done in a transparent manner. The research projects need to be shared on constant quarterly basis. Industry must send their senior people into the academic institutions when the research projects are going on. And I think these are the 2 major factors which can really start shifting the landscape on education, on employability of each student which comes out, and therefore the quality of education.
So business needs to get more engaged,
Yes,
in other words.
absolutely.
Okay, Kris, I think you wanted to say something.
So on employability, when I look at what the IT industry has done, see in IT industry what happens is the technology is moving very fast, and there is no way a academic institution is going to keep pace with the changes in technology because there you have to educate the teacher to learn the technology first, and then you educate the student to use the technology. Curriculum needs to change, exams have to be changed, etc. So that's a long drawn process.
Yeah.
So what industry has done is to create a training process within the industry itself. The industry takes a continuing education as its responsibility and keeps retraining people on an ongoing basis. So for example, 5 million people are employed, the industry is transitioning to AI,
Yes.
and all the major companies are training people on AI
Yeah.
tools right now because they can't be sent back to academic institutions to get retrained. And unlike the developed economy where you fire the person and rehire a new set of people or hire a new set of people, India has taken the route of retraining the people and retaining
It's
them
more
inside.
responsible, isn't it?
Well, it's a better option as far as the industry is concerned because the retraining costs are very low,
Yeah.
right? Because India is a lower cost economy. I can understand why retraining becomes very expensive in a developed economy because the cost of labor is very
Yeah.
high. Here, the cost of labor is very low, so we can retrain the people and retrain
But this
them.
is your existing workforce, which again, in my view, is a very elite, lucky, successful, on the whole, group of people. I'm still intrigued by the, the recent school graduates who you guys or your companies or say the private sector's companies are finding wanting. There's a gap there, and you answered some of this already. That what the government's doing. Do you think the private sector is doing enough to
Private
in the
sector
skills
is-
space?
Yeah, private sector is getting engaged on the vocational training. Private sector is also retraining employees within the business itself. But there's a cultural shift that's required. And Rakesh mentioned this. See, today, when somebody passes 12th or goes from the school to, let's say, college, their mind is that they need to actually become a white-collar worker, an office job.
That's what everybody wants.
Because they've been educated now.
Yeah.
They are no longer
yeah.
willing to work in a field or a farm or a estate. And I will give you a live example. We support tribal farmers in Araku Valley in Andhra Pradesh, coffee plantation. Okay, the land is owned by these tribals because they are the only people who can own these land parcels. And they are becoming richer and richer because all the coffee is exported. Their children are now going to school. Till now they were not going to school. And 10 years from now, what worries us is that the parents are landlords, the children are school educated, and we'll have to import labor to work on the farms.
Oh.
The current generation works because that's what they're used to. So this is a transition now that's happening. And I see this in Punjab also. We went to a village in Taran Taran, met 18 to 22-year-old high school graduates. They all want to migrate to Canada.
That's an issue in Punjab, and we have written about that.
They don't want to. Their parents are farmers.
Yeah.
They don't want to work in the farm.
No.
Right? Because
some of
they are
them have told us
educated.
this. Yeah.
So there is a cultural change that is required.
I'm
We need to-
intrigued by the notion of India importing farm workers. But I have another question related to what we've both been talking about. Do people look down on blue-collar jobs in India? It seems like we spent part of this year speaking to Indians of very, very modest means all over the country, and they all aspired to office jobs for some reason, even if they weren't very good office jobs. Do people look down on good factory work?
No,
They don't.
I don't think so.
Okay.
In fact, if you see more and more labor which is getting into the manufacturing sector, it's not just that the person who's working feels, matter of pride. Even the management feels that they're contributing. The matter of fact is that, as I mentioned, the manufacturing sector is sort of getting back into the flavor
Yes.
with all this. And also, the point is, it's just not office job. And there is a huge potential on tourism, right? We just need to have youth trained and become good tourist guides. Huge potential India has. So therefore, it's not that there is dearth of opportunities. It is, I think, the ecosystem which needs to be shaken up. I mean, let me use that word.
And whose responsibility is that?
It's also it's not manufacturing or
Yeah.
services, it's formal and informal.
Right.
Yeah.
So formal is only 10%, 90% of people work in the informal sector.
Right.
They make do, they make a living, but informal sector, there's no job security, wages are lower, and it's transient job.
I meant
So
to
that's
ask
a
you,
challenge.
I meant to ask you kind of a related question as well, because you're a startups maven, and I'm wondering to what extent startup businesses could be one of the answers about what India does with its enormous demographic bulge. And again, maybe I assume you work in a pretty rarefied world of really, really good startups.
No.
But a startup can also be, I don't know, a taxi service or...
It has impact on the job scene. One of the fastest growing job markets is Bangalore. And the reason for that is the startup ecosystem that exists in Bangalore creates large number of jobs in the logistics space, so large number of taxis are created, large number of buses ply the roads. There are people who have to cook for these people. There are people who have to clean for this. There's a huge economy that's created around the startup ecosystem. The startup ecosystem employs probably, I don't have the exact number, but if you say 5 million in the IT services, it may be employing about 1 million or so.
In all of India?
In the startup sector.
Okay.
But the indirect effect of that throughout the economy is probably 10 times that.
Maybe I've got my head screwed on wrong, but I'm thinking startups also like just small business. I don't hear a lot of people talking about small business.
Right. So
in modest things, not in IT. Not
so the startup is defined as those that can be scaled up. It's technology dependent.
You're talking about IT and the really good stuff.
No, digital technology.
It's digital technology in the entire space. But I think the matter of fact, what Kris is talking about is, the startups ecosystem is such that everyone is in a hurry to become a unicorn. You understand? So they really don't get into the fiscal discipline on day one.
Oh.
And I think that is something which, and this is the world over, I'm not just talking about
I don't think
this
that's
is
just
something
India.
which needs to be really looked at. Responsible businesses will always look at responsible fiscal discipline also. Here the more you burn, the more losses you can raise more funding. So it's quite a skewed up system which sort of exists today. But having said that, I think on the startup ecosystem, India has demonstrated that we can deliver hundreds of new startups every year, adding into the kitty. The challenge which I see is how many of them are going to really scale up.
Of course.
And that is something where the large businesses should also see this as part of their responsibility to handhold and support the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm mindful of the topic of this conference. I wanted to ask a question about R&D, and I was actually, for my own work at the FT, pulling the numbers on R&D spending as percentage of GDP, which is usually an indicator of where an economy is going to go. And we were talking about this beforehand.
Right.
I think in Korea it's like 5% of GDP. What is it in India?
0.7.
0.7, right? So.
But in that 0.7, industry does 0.3.
Okay.
So which is even a lower number.
What's wrong and whose fault is it?
I would say the problem lies on two sides, industry and academia.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in an academic institution.
Uh-oh.
I have to be a little watchful but brutal also.
Okay.
So what happens is, in the Indian ecosystem, when the industry gives money for research, the academic institutions say, thank you very much, and don't talk to us anymore. You've given us money, now leave it to us.
No.
Unfortunately, the system doesn't work like that. When the industry gives money on research funding, it needs visibility of every rupee being spent. And the research project for which the funding was taken feedback is given on regular basis, and once the project is done, then a complete interaction needs to happen. And hand on heart, probably one or two may succeed, and majority of them may not even see the light of the day, because that's the problem of research and development. It's not that you'll have 100% success rate.
Of course not.
But the issue is that the academics feel that now we know what we have to do. We will do that. We'll put a paper, publish it, and that's the end of the story. So the industry loses interest. That's point number one. On the industry side, I don't think the industry is bold enough to put high amount of rupees or dollars, if I may say, in research, because that ecosystem has not developed and it's taken far too long. Having said that, if we today see, the Western world, the developed world, billions of dollars poured into academic universities or academic institutions for research on health, on technology, on whatnot. I mean, everything. There is a partnership.
Isn't a lot of it government money in
it is,
rich
and that
countries?
is where I feel that the time has come when we need to look at three stakeholders in this journey.
Possibly.
The academic institution which will receive the research funding, the industry, and the government should give matching fund. matching amount. So double the amount comes to the academic institution. All the three stakeholders are all important stakeholders. Senior industry leaders must participate into the research projects. The universities must be transparent in sharing the data. And then when we are looking at the projects getting into place, I mean, whether it's succeeded or not, the utilization, the use cases. I mean, for example, in my case, IIT Delhi developed Bharti School of Telecom Technology developed a 5G test bed because that was required. Airtel funded it. Government gave some grant to the institution, of course. And we actually sent our brains from Airtel to really work with them and my vendors, who are my suppliers, because they're equally responsible stakeholders. So I believe that if this ecosystem can be put in, then there can be large amount of money which will come into the research. We will get cutting edge research and we will get efficient research, which India can deliver. It is not that India can, look at space. I mean, we have demonstrated that at a very frugal cost, we can put the rocket to the moon. We can go up to Mars. So India, it's not that the talent is not there, or the willingness is not there. I think it's this ecosystem which needs to come together.
Another perspective on this is where is India on its development path?
Yes.
See, the focus has been to look at basic needs, to look at self-sufficiency in food, which we achieved through the green revolution in agriculture. India is today the number 1, number 2, number 3 producer of most food products. Of course, value addition doesn't happen here, but it has had its impact. So the focus really has been on basic needs. Focus has been on basic education. Look at how literacy has changed. Look at how poverty has been addressed. Today, out of the 1.4 billion people, I think it's estimated that about 50 million people are really poor, under the. But we also need to accept that 650 million people have been moved to middle class during this period. So the focus really has been to bring technology as quickly as possible to India to address the basic needs, lift up the quality of life for people, etc. And the need for R&D and the funding for R&D, because if the need was there, the funding probably could have been there, and it was not felt. Now, from here to becoming a middle-income country or a high-income country, we need to now build our own IPs, because the wealth will be created on the IP that we create and owning that IP, right? So that's the transition, and now I think the need for R&D is being felt more, and forums like these are now discussing that, and I'm actually optimistic that, see, once we decide to do something, I can tell you that we will do.
So what about this idea of matching funds, which I think they do in South Korea and Israel and the other countries that are doing this well? Can't you get this on the government's agenda, and why isn't it there?
Government does, but majority of the funding goes to the public universities.
To public universities?
They do. I think barring 1 or 2 private universities who would have got the fund, and now under the NRF. Am I right? The National Research Foundation? Or that's where they are now saying the private institutions can also access that money. So that already sort of put it in the guideline.
See, again, the government funding primarily is focused on basic research, long-term research. Because industry will fund short-term research. Applied research. So that they can see a benefit coming 3 to 5 year time frame. So the funds that are directed towards research goes to different set of activities, etc. We need both. We need basic research, which will get primarily funded by government and philanthropy, some industry, and we need applied research, which will primarily get funded by industry.
I have a little different view on this, because I think if we see the healthcare, it's long-term research. Private industry is funding that. It's not a short-term. You have to get into developing molecules and whatnot. So that's a long-term research. Similarly, I believe on increasing productivity in the agri and agro industry side. That is a long-term research which the agri universities need to do. And I think that is something where I feel that the agriculture universities who did a lot during the 80s when we became self-sufficient, really big development on agriculture research is happening in very small measures. And I think that needs to be taken to the next level where again the industry and or the agro-food industry and government can really play a
One
big
last
role.
question about research for me. I wanted to also open it up so that people had questions that could join the discussion as well. Maybe this is a can of worms, but what about foreign money for research coming into India, or does that come up against your, I don't know, foreign funding issues in India?
Any foreign funding will have to go
I don't
through
mind
the
asking the question.
the
It does have to go
FCRA.
through some bureaucracy.
FCRA.
Yeah. Answers my question. Okay. Then maybe one more question about philanthropy. I know you guys wanted to talk about that and you both had views. Is the private sector pulling its weight in terms of, this is a developing country. The top of the private sector, which you both represent, is doing tremendously well. Is it doing enough?
So, John, I think first of all, we are in a very different phase. You keep saying India is a developing country. In many areas, we are a developed nation, and in some areas, we are still developing. So I really don't have the one word for what you are trying to say. We are a developing country. Having said that, philanthropy is something which is not new to India, or Indians for that matter. You go back thousands of years. There used to be a saying that whatever you earn, but the sahi, or 10% of that, put it on the side for a noble cause, for a social cause. Those were the days when the money was generally spent in the religious activities or educational institutions. And you had the Nalandas and the universities and large religious organization or institutions which came up. Having said that, after independence, there was very little wealth creation for anyone, whether it was the industry or individuals, because the country was going through a very difficult phase. But post 1991, after the liberalization, we opened up the economy. We started seeing wealth creation opportunities. New age industries came up. IT,
telecom.
Bharti is a product of post liberalization, and many others. And therefore, when we started to grow on the economic front, our employees, they were getting paid. You see, IT sector, Infosys, hundreds and thousands of millionaires got created. And ultimately, that gave, flip to two or three things. One is you not only were meeting your basic needs, but you had extra money to spend on beyond what your basic needs were. And today, if you see, I can tell you hand on heart, every Indian citizen does give money in one way or the other. And so therefore, philanthropy is not something which is new to India. Having said that, the CSR, which got legislated in India, recently as mandated, which started as optional, we spent about 24,000 crores. The industry who fall into that eligibility criteria is about $3 billion plus, which is a number which we can map because that gets reported in the annual reports. All those monies are going into specific social projects. Almost half of that, 45-50%, is in the education sector, health, and then there are many other areas where those funds become available. So what I'm trying to say is that post 91, we had the opportunity to create wealth for ourselves, and therefore we are now able to support the families who need it the most. But again, I'm saying every family does support their drivers, kids, their domestic staff, children's education, marriages, or whatnot.
That I'm aware of.
So therefore, to quantify is a difficult thing because that does not get counted.
I wasn't doubting the tradition at all, or the principle of generosity. It was more kind of a targeted question, right? Because we're talking about issues of competitiveness and helping the next generation, right? Rather than helping the household staff, like with respect, which is also wonderful. That's part of what Indians do. That's part of the culture. Do you think there's enough money going into all the worthy things we're talking about?
First of all, John, I think the biggest spender is the government itself. I mean, look at the government of India and the state governments, how they are supporting people or families in distress. So the industry cannot match that. I also believe, it is, I mean, you just can't have islands of happiness and islands of wealth when there is turmoil around you. So it is the responsibility of every citizen. We can't keep on telling the government to do everything.
Yeah, fair enough.
And we can't just say, after government it is only the industry. I think every citizen of any country is responsible. We need to see that how can we really lend a helping hand and start creating a system which is more happy, more conducive, more at peace and calm around us. And for that, philanthropy, CSR, this is something which is a given, was being done, is being done, and I think is being done at a large scale.
Let me just give you one wonderful example of philanthropy doing something towards leapfrog, where India can be proud of what it has done. This whole India stack that everybody talks about, the payment infrastructure that we have created, etc. It's actually created as a digital public good funded by philanthropy and government. Right? And on top of that, private innovation happens. So that's a wonderful example of philanthropy in a targeted manner, creating something that has completely transformed, access to money, access to banking, financial inclusion. About 10 to 15% of Indians own credit cards, but 80% of Indians can do digital transactions. You go anywhere, you will see a QR code. Any merchant you see on the roadside has a QR code. They're all now participating in this. That entire movement was actually primarily funded by philanthropy and volunteers.
Yes, in the IT sector, I gather Bangalore helps make it. I think Bangalore brought it into life.
Just one example. I think you will see more examples of such new models emerging. This whole concept of digital public good is a new concept that is emerging. Another example is a modular open source identity program. So the UID, which is the fundamental layer of the payment and the India stack and the payment infrastructure that has been created, is now being exported to 11 countries. 80 million Philippine people are being given ID using the modular open source identity program. This entire thing is housed in IIIT Bangalore, in an academic institution, and being exported to the rest of the world.
So that's a good
funded by philanthropy.
A good example where Indian philanthropy changed not only India but
and
also
overseas
the world.
Philanthropy also, foreign philanthropy. Also.
Terrific. I did promise to take some questions, and I see a man with a microphone. So if you have questions there where you can really make a point. I see a person in purple right there. Not purple, green right there. With your hand up. If you could ask a brief question rather than a comment. And
yes, I'll be brief. I'm from ISR Mohali. I'm Samrat Ghosh. I'm in fact in charge of doing vocational training for people around our institutes. And what I found was that they have least regard for learning anything hands-on. And I think the Android addiction is killing all this. We have many workshop injuries. So I'm very pessimistic about this vocational training. My second question to the panelist is that the problem is that people are migrating from agriculture to other services, like as you mentioned, hospitality, hospitality, tourism, medical tourism. Is this the developed economy we are aspiring?
That's a good question.
And my another observation, brief observation, is
I think that was a lot of questions. Let's take some emphasis now.
So,
that's a really good question.
No, the first one was not a question, it's an observation. I don't have. On the second one, see, every job is a good job, according to me. What is needed is the pay has to increase, right? That's something that we need to look at from as a society, as a community, and we need to make sure that everybody makes a good living. So don't say that, because you're going from agriculture to health or something like that, it's not a good job. Every job is important. What is required is to increase the pay.
Can I just respond to the observation? So first of all, I really don't know what are you doing in vocational training. Let me give you my own example. I have a Nehru Siddhant Kendra Trust in Ludhiana. I'm the president. We started a vocational training program last April. And we are giving GST and Tally package 90-day training program being delivered by a training company, Centum Learning. 76% of students who have been certified have got jobs in 1 year, who were sitting idle at home. And they are all the boys and girls who did not have any financial resources. The trust gave 22,500 per student for that 90-day course, and they're getting a job of 11,000 a month. So the vocational training has to be what the industry needs, and then you need to train and get them in front of each other. If you are going to just give vocational training for the sake of vocational training, that is not going to do the job. So that's the answer to your first observation.
Well said, thank you. Any more questions? I see a gentleman with a beard.
I have a question regarding the Rakesh sir's observation. I'm basically coming from academia, and the observation, the point you said that there is a huge gap, academia and the industry, and the point which you told that industry giving the money, but there is a gap of responsive from the academia side. That actually, sir, can you have something in your mind how much time it will take to fill that gap, and what are the tools which is needed, because this is very important for the developmental economy of growth of the economy.
So John, pardon, I'm just going to go Hindi on this, because I remember one of the poets saying at some point of time where I was present, इसमें academy को पहल लेनी पड़ेगी, 2 कदम पहले आप चलो, 4 कदम हम चलेंगे. The point is, we can keep talking, right? I think the time is we need to act. And I was at Plaksha University, Neeraj and the Vice Chancellor sits here. I said the same thing over there. The matter of fact is, what does academia do to engage with industry today? Summer internships and placement. Beyond that, you don't want to talk to us. Am I right? Please come to us. What are your needs? What do you want? Listen to us what we need. Let's get together, start walking that journey together. Delight us, and I can tell you we will dazzle.
Does that work for you? I think that was a good answer. You, please. The white shirt, white and blue. No, white.
Thank you, and great set of observations, sir. I have one query. Today we all are working a lot on digitalization, specifically for blue-collar workers. And being at the hierarchy of the private sector areas, I just want to understand what has changed from the digitalization and before the traditional techniques that were used for hiring blue-collar workers for the industries.
Well, unfortunately, we both are from the services, majority of the thing, but I can tell you, the nature of job is changing. Even when we look at auto industry today, it's getting more into automation. So therefore, what I said, we have to prepare the youth for future of jobs and not jobs in future, is a change in the academic courses which needs to be done, and more importantly, the industry, what it needs in the next 3 to 5 years, that projection needs to be taken seriously to start preparing the kids. Having said that, yes, we keep hearing that with automation there will be loss of jobs. The answer is that there are also new jobs which are being created. Are we making our youth ready for that or not is a big question, and that is something which we need to do together. Having said that, then when someone losing a job, there is always another job waiting. It is only a retraining and reskilling which will have to be done. And there I believe industry has a huge responsibility and a large role to play.
See, just want to add very quickly, when computers were introduced into the banks in the 80s, okay, the first round of computers, they did not want to call them as computers because they thought, computer was a bad word in those days. And it was called automatic ledger posting machines, ALPMs, because they didn't want to call it computers.
That's funny.
Because the unions opposed it and they said jobs would be lost. But fast forward today, the banking industry has grown manifold, and 100 times what the employment was at that time was What is the employment in banking? Banking is completely different today. You can now access banking on your mobile phone, right? Every time we fear job loss, new jobs are being created and the economy grows. People forget, right? In 1980, India was $160 billion GDP. Today, India is about $3.6 trillion, right? So the economy grows and new jobs are created and employment grows.
And by the way, also productivity and efficiency. But
Right.
just one other thing I want to quickly add. I was very fearful, when we started listening to these future technologies and more importantly on AI. Will the youth of tomorrow stop ideating? Because anything you need to know, you just go into a chat GPT, you go into a Google or other AI tools and you get the answer. So any development or any growth which has happened in the world has come through ideation. So my fear was that will this youth stop ideating? Like the youth is not reading anymore. They have stopped reading. Until we were at one of the discussions and sitting across, and the answer to that is that the human mind has the resilience to go beyond. Now we need to start training ourselves to go beyond what AI is going to do. And that is going to take us again up there, where again your efficiency, productivity, whatever word you may use. So don't, lose faith in the human mind and human brain and the power we have.
That's
There
very
was a hand
uplifting, yeah. Do you want to ask your question?
So I have a very simple question. So what, in your opinion, what can be the different set of low-hanging fruits that the government and the industry must target in the R&D sector specifically?
I missed the question, say it again.
No, low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit, especially for the government and the industry in the R&D sector.
So in R&D, my submission is we need to look at white spaces. We need to look at where the world will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and start working on those areas now. We should not be working on, can we develop this technology in India because we don't have those technologies here. I would probably like to buy those technologies rather than develop them in India today. And that's how we will leapfrog. That's where we will lead. And there are so many white spaces today where if we start investing today, we can benefit 10 years from now. And that's where I would focus on. That's what I have done personally also. That's why I'm investing in brain sciences. Because the entire world is grappling with understanding the brain, creating new models for computing, understanding neurodegeneration and Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia. So we are not behind anybody else. So those are the areas that I would actually invest in today.
Yeah.
So we keep talking of diversity. No girls have, none of them have asked a question.
I was about to say that, but I've been told by the organizers that was the last question. If we have any woman who wants to ask a question. I was actually thinking that, so I'm with you
I
on
thought you were
that.
going to say, we will not stop until a woman asks a question.
We will not. You're stuck here. No, you don't look female. Oh, yes, please. A comment's okay, but a brief comment, preferably with a question attached. And then we will wrap up.
I'm, apart from the fact that I'm actually a counselor, and I've been teaching motivation in Hawaii and in the US for many years. But I've grown up in a farming family, and now I've just come back to unwind, relax, and start farming. So what I've observed is that, all the things you said are very correct. That, all the second generation, all the farming kids, I mean, okay, we are zamindars, so that's a different community. But the smaller level of farmers, the second generation doesn't want to work, so we hire labor. So now what's happened is, with the education, that's my personal observation, that all these people want to work 9 to 5. So, I mean, on a farm, we get the water supply at 9 o'clock at night. Am I supposed to go and do that? They say 5 o'clock, madam, sorry, we are going. I mean, how are we supposed to handle this?
I think that's more of a comment than a question. But
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if somebody could do.
No one sitting from the government,
I
only
know.
they can answer
Yeah.
that.
I
Sounds
know.
like a
So in the
different-
breakaway after this, there are many
Yeah.
people here. You can.
Yeah. So
I
said
can
that
direct you
wanted-
who to talk to.
All right, that'll be wonderful. No, you wanted a woman's comment, so I said.
No, sure.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Thanks for commenting. I think we're finished.
Thanks a lot. Thank you to all the panelists for a very interesting, insightful, and thought-provoking discussion. A round of applause to all our panelists. Thank you. I would now like to invite my colleague, Professor Sarang Dev, Deputy Dean, Faculty and Research and Professor of Operations Management, to the stage to present the citation of the ISB Research Catalyst Award that is being presented to Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan this evening. He'll be briefly explaining what the award is all about and then read out the citation for the award.
Thank you, Ram, and good evening to everyone. I think the time has come for which everyone has been waiting. I'll take just a few more minutes before I read out the citation. So we've been talking about this throughout the day. Research has been a foundational tenet of ISB's vision as a B school. It's not a very long history that the school has, but in that short time period, we've tried our best to be the foremost research-led management institution in the country. And we've talked about this. It's evidenced in the rankings, global rankings, so I won't go into that. At the same time, we believe, and I hope the sessions today that some of you attended were a testimony, we don't want to do our research in isolation in ivory towers. We believe that the research is rooted in the society, in the milieu around us. And we realize that, as was pointed out in the panel, it's a two-handed clap. So if we want to do research that is applied, we want to source problems from the society, not just industry, society, government, and we want to provide solutions back, which may be useful, some in the short run and some in the long run. As my dean pointed out, not every paper will result in an immediate solution, but the insights would be relevant to the society. So with that vision in mind, at this forum starting this year, we seek to recognize and award individuals who've supported the advancement of the research agenda in diverse areas through their philanthropy and vision. And I emphasize diverse areas because although we are a management institution, we want to recognize support for research across all sectors, across all fields. The ISB Research Catalyst Award is an acknowledgement of their contributions towards fostering research excellence in the country and the impact that they have thus created. And the word ecosystem was mentioned several times, but that ecosystem needs creation, needs nurturing over long periods of time, not just sporadic support. So that's really the background of the award. And without further ado, I want to now read out the citation for this year's inaugural recipient. So, to Shri Senapati Kris Gopalakrishnan for his unwavering commitment and exceptional contributions towards advancing the cause of research in this country. Kris, through your philanthropic contributions, you have aided key research on brain sciences and aging-related disorders in the country. You've left an indelible imprint on the business and innovation landscape of the nation as a visionary venture capitalist and a technology pioneer. Indian School of Business recognizes you as a catalyst in India's emergence as a research superpower. Thank you. And next, I'm going to invite Dean Madan to come to stage and present the award to Kris along with Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal.
I
Yeah, yeah.
hope this is going to be a pride of place.
Yes, very much so. Very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Great
you.
discussion.
Thank you.
Can I?
Kris, there's something else. What is it?
This is chart. This is your photo made on a chart.
That's it.
That's. Thank you. Can I just say something?
I was going to invite you to say a few words, Kris. Thank you, first of all, for graciously acknowledging and accepting the award. Over to you.
Thank you, ISB. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. You know, it's a humbling experience to get this recognition from an institution like ISB. Just before coming here, I was saying that you know, India experiments, India creates new institutions, and that's what I believe brings out the best of India. ISB is the first example of professionals, philanthropists coming together, not one family, but many people coming together, putting money and creating an institution. They didn't even wait for government approval, and it has become world class. And the FT's ranking from India, it's the #1 business school. So, you know, my salute to all the people who created this institution, and of course all the faculty and staff who have nurtured this to become world class. It has also encouraged other institutions to come, Ashoka, Plaksha, Kriya, Sai, you know, and now we have large number of private institutions which are now coming up, which I think will change the landscape of education in India. I believe we should not be looking always to the government for solutions. We can create these solutions ourselves, and ISB is a fantastic example because it's world class. You know, that's what we want. World class institutions, world class initiatives, institutions that we can be proud of, institutions that create the next generation of Indians, right? And that's the solution. And this can be done everywhere. Sometimes we need government support, but many a time we do not need government support. The answer and the solution is within ourselves. And that's the reason why I'm extremely humbled by this recognition, and I thank you very much. It will encourage me to do more, and I hope to do more. I'm very optimistic about the future of India. I believe that India can be the role model for the world. India can be the laboratory for the world. The entire world comes to India for R&D today. And we are talking about research. Just go around Bangalore. 350 plus multinational institutions have their second or third largest R&D facility in India. Their second or the third, right? And it's lower cost is not the reason why they come here. They come here for the talent. They come here for the diversity. They come here for the passion they bring to their work. And that's what is creating their ecosystem. And if I may, and I'm very careful about it, everything that we use today, there's a part of India inside. If there is software, definitely there's a part of India inside, right? Somebody from Indian origin has contributed to that. And there is software in everything we use today. So I'm very optimistic, and I feel that together we need to find solutions, and we can do that. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Kris, for the very optimistic and upbeat message. I now would like to invite our dean back to stage to felicitate.
Even the auto sector.
Yes.
Every auto, there's an India stamp.
You were say.
Which I was.
Everything is a unique piece.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mittal, who's painted these?
Here, artist is here, Sivalal.
I see.
Thank you.
As we bring to close an exciting day-long ISB Insights Forum, which is the Federal Award Convention Tours, I would like to thank all our panelists and moderators through the entire day who've taken valuable time off their schedules to be here, join us, share their insights and experiences. Thanks a lot to everyone. Thank you to all of you in the audience who have actively participated in all of the new events. Good to see that it's handy good. It's an anticipated event. I hope we were able to give you new and deeper insights in your specific areas of interest. Thank you to the organizing team consisting of our faculty and staff who worked tirelessly over the past several months to put together today's event. Please do join us for dinner in the executive house in Lawrence. We look forward to seeing you again at next year's Inside Forum.
But Ram,